Okay, this video is going to tackle a subject that a lot of people really don't like, but there's ways to make it easier than the way it appears at the beginning. This is called a complex fraction. You see drawn in the black for painfully obvious reasons. What I want you to do is ignore it for a second, because I know it looks complicated and looks a little intimidating, and look over what I have drawn in orange. That doesn't look so intimidating. Okay, we're going to jump back to like the 4th grade and see if we can find a strategy that would help, then apply it to something that's tougher. So if we look at the orange problem, all right, a lot of people could handle that. They go, oh, that's 11/7. Whoopee, that's not too tough to deal with. Now what I want to ask you is this. If I were to take that fraction and multiply the top by 2 and the bottom by 2, would it still have the same meaning? And for those of you who are wondering, well, you could do this and distribute that through if you wanted to, and that's going to give you 16 plus 6 divided by 14, which is 22 divided by 14, which happens to be the same as 11/7. So by multiplying the same factor through everything on top and through everything on the bottom, I haven't really changed the meaning at all. I've just made it different numbers, but different numbers that have the same ratio. Now I want to apply that principle to this problem in black for a specific reason. Okay, this is what we call the terminator method. And the terminator method is designed to do exactly that, terminate the fractions. You want all of these little fractions to basically turn into whole numbers. So we're going to be very strategic about it. All right, if you look at this over here, I first want you to realize that even though the 2 isn't written as a fraction, it still is one. We just have a 1 underneath it. We need to look at all 3 of these little denominators and figure out what's a common denominator that works for all of them. So as I look at those, I go, well, 1, I don't have to worry about that too much. It'll go into anything. X minus 1 and x are both completely different numbers. So as you learned in previous lessons, I'm going to have to use them both as my common denominator, x times x minus 1. Okay. What I'm going to do now, and it's going to look messy at first, but then it's going to get really nice in a hurry, is I'm going to multiply everything by that common denominator. Now, that sounds weird because we don't know what that number is, but we can handle it algebraically. Here we just pick and multiplied everything by 2, because that's an easy number. Over here we're going to multiply everything by the common denominator and see what happens. So I'm going to multiply this fraction by x times x minus 1. And remember, when I do that, when I multiply it, I'm really multiplying it by this over 1. So the x and x minus 1 are on top. X minus 1, x minus 1. And if my 4th grade strategies are correct, that should still have the same meaning, even though it looks way worse. Watch what happens, though. Okay, now if you recognize this, let's use our notions of multiplying and dividing to make this a little better. If this is all one big fraction crammed together, well, that is going to go away. Over here, I didn't really have much of a denominator to get rid of, so we can just write it without the 1s. And then over here, that's going to go away. Now let's see what we have left. Okay, I know it looks bad right now, but let's see what happens. This whole thing right here is no longer a fraction. Denominator's 1. So now I just have a 3x. Over here, I have everything. I got plus 2x times x minus 1. And on the bottom, it looks like I have 5 times x minus 1. Now, I know that doesn't look great, but at least it doesn't have a bunch of little fractions within a bigger fraction. So now if we just try and clean this up as best we can, and you never know, sometimes these things just don't clean up that well altogether, I've got 3x, and if I distribute this, I've got 2x squared minus 2x. And on the bottom, I have 5x minus 5. Now if I keep going, I see I got some like terms here, 3x and negative 2x. So I get 2x squared plus 1x. Okay, these two things go together to make 1x. That's on top. On bottom I have 5x minus 5. And that right there is as good as it's going to get. Now if I wanted to, I could have left it like this. 2x squared plus x over 5 times x minus 1. I could have left it factored like that, Either way is really the same thing. Sometimes factored is better because you can see if it's going to cancel out with something else. That'd be okay right there. Or, if you really feel creative, you could take an x out of the top and write it like this. X over times 2 plus 2x plus 1 all over 5 times x minus 1. You could write it that way if you want to. Still the same thing. It really doesn't matter. Okay, they're all equally simplified, so to speak. So all you have to do, though, is really focus on this part up here. Okay? Can you find a common denominator? Multiply it by everything in the fraction, and that should terminate all the little fractions so you don't have to deal with them anymore.